All right, so welcome back to Artificial Intelligence Research. Before we begin, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so for I think the recent 10 years, I'm just or working on usually I'm working on building the predict model on the different outcome. So using the statics modeling, machine learning, and also try some deep learning, which currently is a narrow, this kind of idea, somebody call it as AI. Yeah. The outcome I predicted usually involved, for example, the survival rate of our potential customer or some other outcome like pricing or is like the risk. Yeah. So in general, I have several years experience on something related to the AI field, at least. Yeah.
Mm, that's cool. Um, Other than that, so not related to AI, what else do you do?
Uh, you mean in my work?
Yeah.
Uh, Actually, it depends on how do you define the AI. My previous company, where was the department I worked in, which is called as a data science and artificial intelligence centers. Yeah. So I think agree my director's definition about AI. The AI, in my opinion, is broader than the deep learning. What he
Mm,
explained is AI is just to try to simulate and mimic the thinking process of a human. Yeah. In this process, the deep learning definitely is for some tasks. It definitely do the similar thing like AI. For example, it try to working on the AlphaGo, right?
mm,
The people try to extract the information, the pattern their games. But in my current work and my previous work, because the data set is not as large as the Google would have used for their training the AlphaGo or even currently the language image. And this limitation is very hard to be overcome because you just don't have so many data. From my opinion, we try the deep learning, but what I may make deep learning may be very good in the very big data, and the standard is relatively stable. The data set is relatively stable. But in the real world, for example, the previous what I'm working in the healthcare field, that's kind of environment keep changing. The data is always have a lot of noise, and the definition keep changing. So deep learning or the deep learning we try doesn't work very well.
mm,
But on the other hand, I'm not saying the machine broad this kind of idea about AI doesn't work well on this field, because besides deep learnings, actually from my knowledge in the industry, another machine learning method is widely used, at least in the tabular data, which we call the boosting trees. Yeah, when the people don't want to use you once the result is much interpretable, boosting trees actually works very well, and most of the time he can even beat the deep learning because
mm.
it is fast and easy to tune. And in the tabular data, we don't need to extract information. Yeah. In my experience, there are some times we need to use the deep learning method, but not so much is when we try to extract information from the document. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Could you hold this one? I need to open the door for my family.
Oh, sure.
你能进来吗？哇， I'm sorry. Yeah, my son and my wife just come off from outside. Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah. So that's my opinion about AI. So I think this kind of boosting trees, I think was widely used based on in the financial institutions, and also in widely used in a lot of currently what I work in the website company, the internet company. Yeah, when their data set is not so much, but the AI, which deep learning, which the method, which current development, I think most of their progress is on image and language. Based on my understanding, so we use I never use the deep learning method on the language on the image, but we really have some simple that kind of employment of that kind of language model. Yeah, it really helps for us to extract, although it's not, we didn't use for the final model, but it really helps us to extract some features. Yeah.
I see. So it seems like you have a lot more experience with AI than I was under the impression of. Oh, and by the way, could you, because I've done this in the past few episodes a bit, but could you explain machine learning in case someone in the audience doesn't know what that is?
Could you elaborate your questions? You want what I
Oh,
want to
I'm
say
just
about
asking you to explain what machine learning is to the audience, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I think actually, based on my understanding, right, the deep learning is very narrow ideas, and artificial intelligence is the broadest, and the machine learning is between of them. If I explain AI is like just want to simulate in thinking of process of people, then it will use a lot of method as which is people already used. So for the machine learning, I think it's just any method which computer used, and based on them, it's computed by the computer department. Yeah, all this kind of things, and try to learning the patterns and predicting the models. That could be the machine learning. Yeah, there is something beside the machine learning is sometimes they call the statistics. They are not some statistics method also be called machine learning, but some statistics method traditionally they just a little bit different with the machine learning. Yeah, this kind of statistics method people also used, try to use that one to thinking about the world. So if you use that one to, for example, predict something, I think it still could be called artificial intelligence. Actually, sometimes it is more close to the people thinking because statistics model use like open box. And based on my understanding, the real people, when they're thinking, they are not the complete black box. They also always try to extract the patterns from what they see and what they did, and organize it, and make it explainable. And in the future, they want to use it. I think actually this is one weakness I think currently deep learning, because deep learning is completely the black box. So the weakness of deep learning is it needs a lot of data set, no matter it is real or it is generated, to training the model.
I see.
And get a very good model result. But the weakness of that one, like current examples, people cannot develop very well in auto driving. Even they already select a lot of data, they still will have a lot of accident. Of course, Tesla could explain a word mistake the people were made. But I think the most advantage of that one is people is easy to tag, make that kind of mistake. But people will not, for example, hit to another truck just the back, or just to see it as a cloud. This recognitions actually is the advantage of people. For example, a person can easily move from one city to another city, and the city he's never visited, but they can still drive very well. But auto drive currently still cannot.
Yeah.
This is things like artificial general intelligence, which current deep learning cannot do very well, because even they have the transfer learning method, that kind of pattern they extract from other side is still black box. It depends on whether you already generate well or not. But the people is quite different. When people driving, learning through this kind of many years, he can learn a lot of things, a lot of pattern from other experience. And I believe most of the time they already extract, form some patterns they can explain very well. For example, if I drive, I can really recognize some mistakes or risk I want to avoid. Right? I see something and I can see I slow down my car. But even I cannot see very clearly, I will not direct hit to the trunk, but direct hit to the obstacles, because I can recognize it. But I can evaluate the risk, how much it is. All these kind of things, I'm not only can recognize, I also can explain it very well. Right? So that's the things I think is current the deep learning haven't done very well. Yeah, I know when I go to the deep learning conference, they are trying to resolve this kind of thing, like thinking like people, because when I learning the biology, or I even learn the machine learning, I agree with this kind of opinion. That's a person, human being, thinking things like a Bayesian process. So they learn something and use it in its input until they are current learning. So they don't need so much big samples. They can adapt to the new environment very well. And I think people try to use this method, yeah, to the deep learning. But I didn't hear they work very well on this one. The current development on deep learning, I think the most thing impressed me is like some other thing like a transformer. They build that kind of model as well as beautiful, good, and make that like a secret model very good on the language. Yeah, but they haven't resolved this kind of things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's also my work, my impressing in my current work. In my current work and my previous work is not only we are trying to use the deep learning, right? We're using the deep learning to build the model, but this kind of model cannot beat either the Bayesian tree or static models. And the things headache for us is it's very hard to adjust it because it's black box. Even I know what its weakness is. Even I know, for example, the data set is dirty. I want to clean the model to automatically clean it. And deep learning just cannot do it. Yeah, but you can, for example, you can easily to use it on apply your ideas to the static modeling because they are completely open box. Or you can even do a little bit better in the Bayesian trees. Yeah, but deep learning is sometimes relatively difficult.
I see. Wow, that's a lot of insight into deep learning and everything. I guess.
Yeah.
So you already talked about the strengths and weaknesses of AI. I guess, do you think that biases or racial biases, would that be an actual pretty big problem for AI?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that yes. I think this is one of the reasons in my previous company we don't use deep learning. Because in my previous company we are regulated, cannot have bias in our prediction model. We cannot say that, for example, people, when I give them the predictions, give them money or something, when a person is a woman, will be charged more than men. That's not allowed. Or some different races have a different charge based on our model. Yeah. So that kind of things will be need to be adjusted and constrained, right? But this is the weakness of the deep learning. I cannot do it in the model. I cannot force the deep learning when he's learning that makes all this kind of equal or something. I just ignore them. But it's more easier than using other methods. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah. So, but it can be overcome by the, for example, you try to do the post-model adjustment, but it's more harder, right? So if for example, the performance is not good, and I'm also very hard for the post-model adjustment afterwards, why I use it?
Yeah.
Right. So why I just use another method, right, to make my life easier, make work easier, and more progress. Yeah, much better. Yeah, and my collaborator can understand it very well. Yeah. And the things deep learning the problem is the things, for example, the training set is always limited, right? The testing set is always limited. For the bias or something you mentioned, that's always edge cases. That's a risk. Right? You test it very well, for example, but when you go to the real world, the situation could change. This kind of thing could still happen. But for the other method, you can guarantee the output is what we want expected. So I think
Right.
it's a big problem. And people, I think at least in the US, there's I have heard in different fields, there's some requirement and regulation on this. Yeah.
Hmm. How about privacy concerns? Do you think, because AI is also used in facial recognition software. So do you think that using AI for security and like recognizing faces, do you think that's a privacy concern, or do you think it's fine to use those things in security?
I think it's not a privacy problem. It's also the risk about, for example, at least for somebody, even for the money. Because the problem is AI currently work very well in the image field. Right, I already know not only privacy, and also somebody even you can begin using the AI to cheating, to steal the money from others. This kind of things, it has some deep weakness, but it really work pretty well in some field. In this field, a lot of people already try to use it to the best thing. So I really concerned about this kind of things using the face recognition.
I see. Are you excited for the future of AI then?
Actually, my understanding is in the future, although there's artificial, I'm worried about it. Although the artificial general intelligence, maybe in my opinion, could still a long way to go, because I think the deep learning has weakness. It cannot be overcome very easily. But there are two things I worry. One thing, the first is AI or robot. They don't have a feeling like human. They also don't have fear, and they don't have the requirement for the survival for the whole population, which in this world, human or even animals developed for many years. The human have their own this kind of instinction for the survival, at least for the total populations. Yeah, all their actions, all they have some logic. Said we at least, even sometimes person will sacrifice themselves. They want to this population grow. It's in the gene. One book is very famous. It's like selfish gene. Gene have this kind of requirement to go to the next generation. So, but the machine or robot, anything back to AI, they don't have a requirement. They cannot work like human. Maybe like in a lot of area cannot work as good as human. but they can destroy the world, right? They don't mind, right? They don't mind. They can just want to do something, they will destroy the things. This is one thing. And I think they're already very powerful. It's already powerful, not only for the deep learning. Actually, if you're thinking current development like cloud, I think the cloud developed by the Amazon, Google, or software currently is already very powerful. You cannot, it's not only the place you can store the data. It becomes more powerful to let you automatically doing the analysis. Either it's deep learning or something like analysis, which can simulate the human's behavior. Yeah. And it really improves the productivity of different company because you don't need to build your own team for a lot of things. And people previously you need to buy a lot of expensive servers and waste a lot of resources, but currently they can help you to manage very well. Yeah, think about this one. This cloud itself could be a Skynet, like we saw it in the movie, right? In the future, somebody develop it and spread it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to some more philosophical questions then. Do you think that AI, or rather, do you think the human brain is similar or essentially a computer? Like, is human intelligence and machine intelligence like comparable in your opinion?
I don't think they are comparable because human has its limit. Human don't have so many power to use.
Ah,
Even
true.
even AlphaGo, I know the current deep learning, they need to use a lot of power to achieve the human performance. Yeah, and human also don't have so much memory. The human cannot store so many things. Yeah, so I think the thinking process of human and the computer, although current deep learning really makes it more close, but it's still quite different. Yeah. And in other field, previous like Bayesian tree and the static models is already simulated like human. Bayesian tree is just like tree model, right? It's combine them together. Ensemble method. It's just like humans. So I mean one thing that make decision. I mean another things make decision. Yeah, he just make this kind of things more automatic, and he can dealing this kind of complete things in a very short time, but human cannot. But it is still like the human thinking process. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, but human have his own, I think, advantage. Like what I said, he can borrow ideas from his previous experience very easily in a very small samples.
Yeah.
And it's this kind of requirement, I think, although currently they can write a language, they can like image, but how we have to deal with a lot of small samples is still we encounter every day. Or even for example, my previous work and current work, we dealing with millions of data. The deep learning still cannot use it. Yeah, cannot work well on that one. Yeah, this kind of things I think is more common. That's why I heard from some financial institutions. They told me they abuse Bayesian trees instead of deep learning.
So of course, there's this human aspect that AI can't replicate. Have you ever taken a look at AI art, for example?
I really take a look at this one. It's pretty good. Yeah. So I think if you think whether AI in the future can replace some person work, I think it is. And because there's a lot of people, there's a lot of field, right? We don't need the real product of the great artist. We just need some moderate things. For example, I design a web page. I don't need to be very innovative. It's just as good as it could be, and different with others. I have another requirement for I want to reduce the cost. I want to develop very fast. All these kind of things that AI can help. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that machines can be original or creative?
You mean a machine create another machine?
Not like another machine, just like because humans can create things like art, or like problems. Well, not problem solve, I guess. Humans can come up with like ideas and stuff. Do you think that machines can do that?
Based on my understanding, I don't think machine currently can create a very meaningful idea, innovative. But they can really repeat people's thinking process about a lot of research. And that's last time, just 2 weeks ago, I'm joking with my friend. For example, previously working on the biology, I told him, although AI cannot really doing very innovative biology method experiment. For example, the paper published on the top journal of Science, Nature, which is very groundbreaking. Because all these kind of things need to like artificial general intelligence. You need to extract the great ideas from small sample based on previous experience. But there's something that really can repeat. Previously, I know when doing, there are some people, some professors just put two science paper on their wall, on their lab office wall, and let his student just repeat the science papers experiment on a very similar topic. I think this kind of work can be finished by AI, right? Especially when the people I know you are just into another person working on the image around the lab, yeah. And if the AI can recognize the common image, and I know there are already some other automatic labs with moving the different experiment tools, right? If all this can link together, and the AI could also recognize some image, they can do it by themselves, following some process.
I see.
Yeah, this kind of experiment, this can be done by AI, I think.
Okay. How about, do you think that AI could rule the world one day?
I think it's easy to destroy the world. Whether it will rule the world, I don't know. Because destroy the world means it also will destroy itself. It's easy, for example, you have the mistake, he just triggers some disaster. Yeah. But for the rule the world, I don't think currently at the beginning, when the deep learning AlphaGo come out, I'm really worried about it. But when I began to more and more on this field and using the deep learning and other methods, and even we saw example, we try to resolve the problems, I found the deep learning, this current method still cannot help. If they cannot help us resolve these things, I don't think that they have the chance to dominate this world, ruling the world, because all these questions is very important. Yeah.
That's a good point. I never really thought of that actually.
Yeah. For example, if it cannot even drive smoothly from one place to another, how he can ruin the world, right? He will full of if an accident or something, if a human just put something to could misleading them, he cannot judge it very well. Then it cannot work very well on this, right? On this kind of things. There's a lot of fields they cannot. For a lot of fields, there's limited data. and you need to use imagination, use your previous experience to make the right decisions.
On a smaller scale compared to ruling the world, do you think that AI will replace our jobs eventually? Or which jobs would they replace rather? And which jobs do you think are irreplaceable?
Actually, ironically, look like currently the job people think is hard sometimes is easy to be replaced by the AI or robot. And people
Yeah.
think it's very easy. Actually, for example, you're even just doing the switch the hamburger to receive the money. And although they can do it, but they can order just like a waiter. I know there's a lot of experiment field on this.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of field because even currently like deep learning already working on very well on some language. It still cannot replace the human beings that kind of communications. Yeah, it can only answer some routine questions. And but sometimes like the previous like calculators, the computer, sometimes humans think it's very difficult. Currently, it looks like the AI works very well, right? So I think in the future, AI may replace some not so high level intelligence work, but boring. It will be like someone told me, like some lawyer work, but just collecting data, organize the data, or document some low level. I think AI although searching something, give you some preliminary suggestions. I think it can be done by the AI, or even some work or primary doctors. It's just some primary doctor just searching something in the Google something. They can give some advice. It can give you some AI, but be above that. For example, for the primary doctors, I meet some very good primary doctors. They can give you the suggestion based on the case trends. I don't think there are a lot of cases. I think that in that field, AI cannot work very well. Yeah, and the same as a lawyer. For example, if you want to beat in the court, fight in the court, I don't think this kind of things can be done by the AI. At least in the next 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, thank you so much for your time. We're running out, so any last comments or questions you have or thoughts? Anything you want to say?
No, yeah, I think if you want to ask more questions, I'm fine, yeah.
Okay. I think we're done for now. So, yeah, thank you again for this opportunity. I know I learned a lot, and hopefully the audience learned a lot as well. And thank you for your perspective. It was actually very enlightening. And also, you definitely knew more about AI than I thought I would expect, I guess. So anyway, thank you and have a good rest of your week.
You too. Yeah. Good luck for your research. Yeah.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.